más sostenible.
El 25 al 27 de junio se realizó acá, en Ciudad de Panamá, la 19ª sesión de la Comisión de Pesca Artesanal en Pequeña Escala y Acuicultura para América Latina y el Caribe.
COPESALC, 45 delegados de 16 países debatieron sobre los desafíos y oportunidades que enfrentan los sistemas alimentarios para ir a la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, la responsabilidad ambiental, la inclusión social y el resguardo de los medios de vida.
Logramos obtener resultados que nos permiten tener recomendaciones para la conferencia regional de la FAO que se llevará a cabo en Brasil en el primer trimestre del año 2026, así como recomendaciones para el plan de trabajo de la FAO, recomendaciones para los países y un plan de trabajo de la Comisión. Por primera vez tenemos ya definidos muchas áreas, muchas etapas que vamos a poder desarrollar en conjunto de la presidencia pro tempore que será ejercida por Panamá durante estos próximos 2 años, entre lo que vamos a tener una serie de webinars, una serie de estudios, así como algunos foros regionales para seguir encaminando la transformación azul de América Latina y el Caribe.
Los países hicieron recomendaciones sobre la importancia de seguir impulsando la asistencia a políticas públicas y marcos normativos, entre otros temas. La Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura, FAO, encabeza la secretaría de la instancia.
Para Panamá es muy importante asumir esta presidencia y poder desarrollar la directriz FAO y las directrices de la Comisión Regional, lo que nos permitirá para el beneficio de todas las partes con respecto a la ordenación pesquera y también el desarrollo de la acuicultura.
Más de 85 millones de personas en América Latina y el Caribe dependen de la pesca y la acuicultura. Por ello, es fundamental impulsar iniciativas que fomenten el uso sostenible del océano como fuente de alimento, empleo y bienestar, y seguir promoviendo la transformación azul.
Una vida mejor para las personas, sin dejar a nadie atrás. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas, que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. América Latina y el Caribe es la región más desigual, con niveles persistentes de pobreza rural que afectan desproporcionadamente a las mujeres y a los pueblos indígenas. La exposición a múltiples riesgos que aumentan rápidamente está haciendo que los sistemas agroalimentarios sean vulnerables a diferentes crisis y choques, afectando los medios de vida rurales, especialmente para la agricultura familiar. En América Latina y el Caribe, el 25% de la población se identifica como indígena o afrodescendiente, mientras que las mujeres constituyen el 36% de los trabajadores del sistema agroalimentario en el mundo. Por eso, en la región, la FAO trabaja en una mejor vida, priorizando una transformación rural inclusiva a través de acciones dirigidas a acelerar la inversión y la cooperación internacional. Erradicar la pobreza rural y reducir las desigualdades es fundamental para impulsar un desarrollo económico que ofrezca oportunidades para todos. Trabajemos juntos para reducir las desigualdades para un futuro más sostenible y resiliente.
Agradecer a FAO por esta ayuda a la gente de carne y hueso del impenetrable chaqueño, que claramente vive de la sustentabilidad, del cuidado de nuestro monte, y es por eso que agradecemos profundamente primero la escucha para destrabar esa situación difícil que atravesaba nuestra provincia, y esa escucha hoy se ha convertido en una realidad. A trabajar juntos por nuestro bosque, a trabajar juntos por nuestra gente.
¿Sabías que el caracol gigante africano es un molusco que puede afectar significativamente la producción agrícola y pecuaria, el ambiente, la salud humana y la seguridad alimentaria de los países? Esta plaga consume más de 500 especies de planta, así como carroña y escombros, y su presencia es favorecida por las alteraciones climáticas. incrementando las posibilidades de introducción, establecimiento y dispersión con alto potencial de desencadenar emergencias sanitarias. Por ello, te compartimos 3 medidas de prevención que debes tener en cuenta. Primero, debes ser estricto con el manejo de la basura, en la cual el caracol encuentra sitios para alimentación, refugio y anidación. Segundo, siempre moviliza y utiliza material de propagación de viveros libres de caracol gigante africano, dado que este es la mayor vía de dispersión. Y tercero, evita el uso de caracol gigante africano como mascota, carnada para pesca, uso cosmético o cualquier tipo de explotación comercial de este molusco. Recuerda, la gestión oportuna de amenazas como el caracol gigante africano es un proceso que involucra y orienta esfuerzos de todos los sectores para mantener sanas nuestras plantas y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria de nuestras familias.
Necesitamos una para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. La región enfrenta desafíos significativos para erradicar el hambre y la malnutrición. Aunque el número de personas que sufren hambre disminuyó ligeramente en 2023, 41 millones de personas en la región aún la sufren. América Latina y el Caribe registran el costo más alto y estable en comparación con los promedios mundiales. El estado de $4,56 por persona por día. Una de cada 4 personas no puede permitirse una dieta saludable. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor nutrición, priorizando poner fin al hambre y lograr la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición sin dejar a nadie atrás. La transición hacia dietas saludables y una mejor seguridad alimentaria para los más vulnerables es una prioridad en la región. Trabajemos juntos por la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición para un futuro más brillante. Necesitamos una mejor producción para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Nuestra región aporta el 14% de la producción mundial de alimentos. Sin embargo, el 33% de las tierras cultivables están moderada y altamente degradadas, y la pérdida de más del 40% de la producción se relaciona con plagas y enfermedades. La FAO trabaja por una mejor producción en la región, priorizando una producción eficiente, inclusiva y sostenible, donde se necesita abordar integralmente las dimensiones ambiental, económica, de la agropecuaria, forestal, de la pesca y de la acuicultura. Trabajemos juntos hacia una producción sostenible, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
El caracol gigante africano es una especie invasora y que afecta a la salud humana y animal. Por eso, si tienes sospechas de la presencia de esta plaga, es necesario que tomes en cuenta las siguientes recomendaciones. Es esencial contar con la identificación oficial de la especie antes de iniciar el proceso de control y contención, lo cual debe realizarse en coordinación con las autoridades fitosanitarias, de medio ambiente, protección civil y de salud pública. En el momento de las manipulaciones, Los operarios deben contar con el equipo de protección adecuado, especialmente guantes descartables, y no deben tocarse la cara para evitar la contaminación e ingesta accidental de parásitos. El descarte del caracol gigante africano puede realizarse mediante ahogamiento o presión mecánica. En casos de uso de tratamiento químico, este debe realizarse con productos autorizados en cada país, así como a las dosis establecidas para cada uno de ellos. Las autoridades locales, en conjunto con la comunidad, determinarán la disposición final de las poblaciones de caracoles controladas, las cuales pueden realizarse mediante incineración, procesos denominados hidrólisis, traslado a un relleno sanitario o enterramiento. Cada uno de estos procesos debe seguir el protocolo correspondiente indicado por las autoridades respectivas. Y no olvides que siempre debes lavarte bien las manos después de retirarte los guantes al finalizar el proceso de descarte del caracol gigante africano. Recuerda, solo a través de un esfuerzo colectivo y coordinado podemos proteger nuestros ecosistemas de los impactos devastadores de estas especies invasoras.
Estamos reunidos aquí junto a FAO y diversas áreas gubernamentales para conformar la mesa técnica de la cuenca forestal, que en definitiva significa la unidad entre los actores que componen el sector forestal industrial en la provincia, que esa unidad va a reflejar los intereses comunes para que los proyectos que financian tanto los proyectos integrales comunitarios, la misma cuenca forestal, el manejo de bosques con ganadería integrada, sean canalizados mediante el Ministerio de la Producción y Ambiente y FAO particularmente, para financiar a aquellos actores que hoy son centrales en el desarrollo de la cuenca forestal. Y aquí el gobierno de Formosa lo que hace es visibilizar esto, no solamente llevar adelante actividades productivas en armonía con el ambiente y la protección de nuestros recursos naturales, sino fundamentalmente actividades que le den dignidad y que también le permitan integrarse en la comunidad que protege sus recursos naturales y que, por sobre todas las cosas, también tiene como eje central al trabajo como ordenador de la vida en común.
Bueno, trabajar en la FAO, no sé si catalogarlo de trabajo en realidad, porque es una actividad muy linda para desarrollar por todas las personas. Esto de colaborar para que cada uno de los habitantes de nuestro planeta o de nuestro país o de nuestra ciudad pueda tener un plato de comida sobre la mesa es algo que no tiene precio, digamos, ¿no? Es una satisfacción muy grande de trabajar ahí. Sí, claro, hubieron muchos hitos a lo largo del periodo de trabajo. Quizás el más importante sea cuando la CELAC, que es la Comunidad de Países Latinoamericanos y Caribeños, puso en la mesa, puso como tema de trabajo un plan de acción para eliminar el hambre en América Latina y el Caribe. Nos solicitó la CELAC a la FAO, también a CEPAL, a otros organismos que trabajáramos para poder eliminar el hambre en la región. Eso sin duda fue uno de los hitos más importantes no diría de un periodo concreto de trabajo de la FAO, sino de toda la región. Yo rescataría o tendría que mencionar 3 aspectos muy importantes que aún hoy siguen vigentes. Uno es la erradicación del hambre, digamos. Erradicar el hambre no es que hay un número más chico de personas que no pasa hambre, es directamente ir a un mundo distinto, digamos, ¿no? Que todas las personas tengan una adecuada alimentación implica darles una oportunidad que ahora no tienen. El segundo tema, que es muy importante, tiene que ver con el cuidado del medio ambiente, digamos. Hoy por hoy, nuestros sistemas de producción y de consumo están atentando contra el medio ambiente, digamos. Tenemos que pensar en que tenemos que dejar un mundo mejor para adelante y a este ritmo no vamos a tener un mundo para adelante, o un mundo para los Homo sapiens, al menos. Entonces, el tema del medio ambiente es otro de los temas relevantes que tenemos que tener. Y el tercer tema tiene que ver con la inclusión de los sectores productivos. No tenemos una sola forma de producir, tenemos distintas formas de producir alimentos y algunas son de grandes capitales o capital intensivo y en otros tenemos, por ejemplo, la agricultura familiar que permite la inclusión de un conjunto de personas que hoy están rural, pero incorporarlos a un esquema social y productivo que sea sostenible, digamos, e inclusivo. Este es otro de los aspectos relevantes que tenemos que considerar. Sin duda muy interesante porque era un paso más para erradicar el hambre en la región. Los reducir a la mitad y ahora estamos hablando de erradicar el hambre en América Latina y el Caribe, bueno, en todo el mundo en realidad. Entonces, bueno, había que prepararse, había que preparar los planes nacionales para llegar a cumplir ese objetivo, al vencimiento de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Y bueno, este es un trabajo que empezó en un momento, pero no para más, digamos, ¿no? Esto es un tema dinámico donde hay que estar lidiando constantemente con los vaivenes políticos que enfrenta la región, pero es un tema que siempre hay que tenerlo presente y siempre hay que empujar para lograr estos objetivos. Sin duda fue un momento de alegría muy lindo que el conjunto de países adoptara nuevamente no era disminuir el hambre en la región, sino directamente erradicarla. Fue sin duda uno de los momentos más lindos que pudimos experimentar, yo personalmente, pero también con todo el equipo de trabajo que me acompañaba, que era un equipo maravilloso, pero ahí era una alegría inmensa ver que podíamos cristalizar nuestro sueño de tener un mundo sin hambre, digamos, ¿no? Entonces, trabajar en pos de ese sueño siempre fue muy lindo.
Hoy, América Latina y el Caribe aporta el 15% de la producción ganadera mundial. ¿Sabías que la demanda global de esta proteína crecerá un 20% al 2050? El reto es producir más eficientemente y de manera sostenible para satisfacer esa necesidad nutricional y a su vez garantizar los medios
días o buenas tardes para
Good
todas y
morning
todos.
or good
Mi nombre es
afternoon,
Catalina
everyone. My
Ivanovich
name
y
is
soy
Catalina
especialista
Ivanovich,
en
and I am
empoderamiento
a
rural
specialist in the
en la
empowerment of
Oficina Regional de la FAO para América
rural
Latina
women
y el
at
Caribe.
FAO's
Hoy
Regional
es
Office for
un
Latin
honor
America and the
para mí
Caribbean. And
estar en
today
este
it's an honor for me
webinario
to welcome you to the
especialmente dedicado a las mujeres
webinar
rurales
entitled Keys to the Empowerment of Rural Women as from the One Health
organizado por la
Approach,
FAO junto a aliados
organized by the FAO
importantes
together
en la
with
región. En
important
este encuentro
allies in the region. In
vamos
this
a
meeting, what
visibilizar
we will do
los
is to bring to
desafíos
the
y
fore the
oportunidades
challenges and
hacia la
opportunities
salud,
of the One Health
reconociendo
approach,
que las personas, los
recognizing that
animales, las plantas y el
the
medio
health of
ambiente
people, animals,
están
plants, and the
profundamente
environment are
interconectados.
deeply
Además,
interconnected.
pondremos un énfasis
In
especial en
addition,
el
we will also
empoderamiento de
place
las
a
regiones
special
rurales,
emphasis on the empowerment
reconociendo
of
que la
rural
igualdad de
women,
género
recognizing
es
that
un
gender
derecho
equality
fundamental
is not
y una
only a
herramienta
fundamental
esencial e
right, but also
inquebrantable para
an
transformar
indispensable
sistemas
condition to
agroalimentarios
transform
hacia la
agri-food systems
sostenibilidad y la
towards
resiliencia.
sustainability and
Agradecemos inmensa
resilience.
a
Today, we
nuestros
thank
panelistas
our
invitados, a
panelists,
los
our
equipos
invited
organizadores y
panelists,
a los
likewise the
anónimos
organizing teams, and
interlocutores
each
por
one and every
acompañarnos.
one of you for joining us
Por eso
today.
la
In order
comunicación
to
les
facilitate
recuerdo que
communication,
contamos
I would
con
like to remind you that we
traducción de
have
español a inglés
simultaneous
y
interpretation from Spanish to
están
English,
disponibles
and
en la transmisión
you
en
will
vivo.
find that
Y
available
al
in
mismo
the
tiempo
live
les invito a realizar
streaming.
preguntas y
I
comentarios
also invite
a
you
las
to ask
panelistas en el
questions and
chat
make comments
evento.
aimed at
Tendremos
panelists
espacio
in the
hacia el
chat
final
of
de
this
este
event. At
para
the end of this event,
responderlas a
we will have
detalle.
space to
Comenzamos
answer each one
entonces
of
con las
those
palabras
questions.
de
So we would like to
bienvenida
begin with the
de Andrés
welcoming
González.
words that
Andrés
will be delivered by
González
Andres
es el
Gonzalez,
Oficial
who
de
is
Desarrollo
the
Ganadero y
FAO
Alimentario
Livestock
de la FAO
Development and
para
Animal
América
Health
Latina y el Caribe.
Officer for Latin
Bienvenido,
America
Andrés.
and the Caribbean. Welcome, Andres, and we invite you to deliver your welcoming remarks. Good afternoon, everyone. It's truly an honor to be present at this webinar that will provide us with fundamental insights when it comes to the empowerment of rural women through the One Health approach. I would like to express our gratitude as from the FAO, from the Latin America, and from the regional FAO Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, and share the need to work on health and sustainability issues as from the One Health approach. This approach not only acknowledges the interconnection that exists, as was mentioned by Catalina, between people, animal and environmental, and the health of the environment, but also its interdependence. In other words, they all rely upon each other. And the fact that one system can have an impact upon the rest of the components of the whole health system, and therefore one of the main interests of working in an integrated, collaborative and holistic fashion when it comes to the health approach is to prevent a health crisis from becoming a humanitarian or a food crisis. Our region in Latin America and the Caribbean faces various risks when it comes to health, most of them linked to pathogens that have been present in the region, but never at such a massive and disseminated fashion as today. We can quote the examples of the African hog fever, which impacts the pork production units, small, medium, and large scale units. It doesn't discriminate between small and large scale producers. Likewise, with highly pathogenic food flu, which has a zoonotic potential. In other words, it can impact human beings. And this is a disease that is unprecedented in our region. Given its massive dissemination in many Caribbean countries, and this beyond the sanitary management and epidemiology, it has tangible impacts upon such basic aspects such as the supply of a protein that is so important for Latin American and Caribbean populations. And I refer, of course, to chicken meat and eggs, and this has had an impact upon the diversity of wild animals. That also is a biodiversity heritage of our region, and therefore how to deal with these aspects, well, this implies various improvement opportunities. And therefore, as the FAO, we have offered a whole series of webinars and virtual meetings in order to bridge these gaps and benefit from these opportunities. Today, we will concentrate on something that not only impacts the One Health approach and agri-food systems, but it's also a gap that is extremely well known by all of us. And I refer to how we can improve the gender approach, how to improve inclusion in agri-food systems. And for that purpose, we will have 4 colleagues who are all of them specialists in their own areas, and that will be sharing their experiences and encouraging us to take this discussion far beyond this webinar, so that hopefully in each one of the territories where you live and work, where you create communities, you may be able to improve, to bridge the gender gap in your own working environments. And therefore, we would simply like to thank you for this very necessary discussion and wish all of you an excellent webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andres, for your words, for opening up this dialogue and for reinforcing the need for us as a team. Uh, we needed to all continue to work hand in hand. Now we will listen to the presentation that will be delivered by Natalia Cediel Becerra, who is an associate researcher of the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences at Universidad de La Salle in Bogota, Colombia. And she will be talking about some key elements in conceptual terms in order to comprehensively tackle the One Health approach together with the gender approach. Natalia, you have the floor. Thank you, Catalina. Can you hear me well? Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Andres, and the whole FAO team for this invitation and for being pioneers over time in the integration of these 2 approaches that we will be referring to now. I would like to greet all rural women that are participating, or governments, or civil society organizations where they permanently work in order to provide a far better quality of life for all that work in this field. Now, in addition to expressing my gratitude, I would like to convey that through these 2 approaches, that they, first of all, that they may seem very obviously connected, but this is not something that we are used to within the framework of the gender gaps that we face today and that have been documented in various reports over time. The latest ones have obviously been produced by the FAO and distributed throughout the world in the report on the situation of rural women in the world, and one that was launched this year focusing on our region. One of the things that has surprised us enormously is that these gaps can be divided up into different categories. First of all, working conditions and the salary gap that does not improve. And that means that rural women continue to have irregular jobs, informal jobs. They have no social security. They receive a far lower salary than that of men, and also with the limited ownership of land. Several countries are trying to create legal protection or greater legal protection for women in this sense, but there are structural barriers that prevent us from making those changes quickly, and therefore the invitation is to improve those legal guidelines at country level, but that also involves a cultural change that we will refer to later on. On the other hand, we also have non-remunerated household work, which is very strong in the region, and it is indicated that 2 or 3 times the time devoted to domestic care is on the hands of women compared to men, and this leads to vulnerability that creates a vicious circle in terms of being able to break down these or overcome these barriers. It's not easy to overcome this when many roles in society are associated to this domestic work, and also an equal access to productive resources. We know that not only refers to land, but also inputs, seeds, fertilizers, and pieces of equipment. And all this is associated to limitations in terms of access to training, not only for production, but also for to basic quality education, basic infrastructure such as internet, clean water, and also to markets.
So this framework, we will try to integrate these international frameworks such as the SDGs and these approach, which is health-based. But we all know that the SDG means work not only from one sector. That has been the challenge to achieve these SDGs. When we look at the evidence of progress and indicators, uh, goal number 5, there's still a lot to do in terms that when some of the things are not recognized as a fundamental human right. Unless we start by that, we will not move ahead with the next steps in the change in the structure and how we analyze problems, how we organize production chains. And one of the things is that gender equality should be key as a right in order to address those health, climate, and diversity loss crises. It is said that those who bring these change are people, but among people there are certain skills by women in order to support and sustain these commitments and activities and carry on these international integration. We have seen that the rural women are those key development agents because they are the catalyst in the transformational changes. That is, we have to see how, as part of the SDGs, we offer great priority to these SDG 5. This is what we've been doing at La Salle University, which is to focus on SDG 5 as the catalyst of other SDGs. Why 5? Because there are 2 points which I would like to address today. One of the goals is reforms provide giving women the right to economic resources in equal conditions, land ownership and control, financial services, natural resources. So there's something that we have to do, and that has been led by FAO, but we have to do it throughout the organizations from the panel of experts, which I also represent. We have had this discussion. How to generate these One Health policies, rural development, or improving the food chain so that policies promote and transform such inequalities. So it is SDGs discuss empowerment, empowering women and girls. But in order to have the same language, we need to clarify this gender approach. In many cases, we confuse the terms. It is important then to understand when we talk about gender, we're talking about a social construct. This is not a biological, purely biological thing. This is a construct based on roles and attributes given by society to men and women. So there are other terms that will help us understand today, which is the gender perspective, which is the way we understand the world, how we look at inequalities affecting people's life, and how that this is different for men and women, and how we can understand those gender roles, make visible such inequalities, realizing stereotypes, preventing this greater equality, and uh, and to promote the positive interventions. And the gender approach, it's a way to intervene through programs, meaning action plans, indicators, goals to be achieved. That's why, Natalia, you have 3 minutes left. Thank you. And the gender analysis is this the diagnostic procedure, how we measure those roles, access, opportunities as the Una Salud, One Health has equality commitment conditions with the communities, including understanding the voices that have been overlooked in the definition. Uh, uh, so, as part of this One Health, we have a joint action plan, and one of the important things is that this framework allows and support for gender equality, empowerment of women, and gender-sensitive perspective. But when we will delve in it, not all the paths make a gender explicit. So we need to understand that there is a lack of operational guidelines and accountability in terms of equality. And this is something that this is a living plan built by people. So when we have these action plans in the countries, we need to explain this. Why it's important to discuss integration? Because when we integrate the gender approach in One Health initiatives, we realize how inequalities affect human and animal and ecosystemic health. Women may be trained for surveillance of zoonotic diseases. Programs could be more encompassing, how we can desegregate data. Especially, we have seen certain publications where we see that we have found barriers to vaccinate cattle or livestock. And this is because of the perception of women in terms of vaccination, because of a limited time for to attend vaccination activities, the cultural beliefs around the roles of women in in livestock raising, and these studies shown have shown that this is more and more necessary, and the integration of both approaches show that there is a need from gender blind tools to gender sensitive tools. And this is our invitation from One Health with this chapter in the book, which is this is free access. This is a chapter addressing how to integrate gender equality in One Health and how One Health tools should propose the integration of two approaches throughout the cycle, research and intervention programs, analyzing the situation, prioritizing topics, and designing interventions that will work for everyone. Interventions are not a formula. We need to understand the specific context of application. And this is done through questions such as these on the slide. Um, we've built frameworks from CR, and several investigators have made interesting publications from as well as from Latin America. Natalia, we are right on time. If you could close your presentation. especially in integration of climate change, food security. We have seen how this climate change will widen these gaps in the specific doctoral thesis of a student that I'm supervising. We've seen how tools such as Women Empowerment Index in agriculture and livestock, plus gender analysis used by Oxfam have improved safety and access to milk. Many of the things we find is that there's no training for women, considering changes are being made so that uh, husbands and children can be included because in things such as safety and trying to improve life quality of rural families. And the message, the message is that we say that One Health is a change of paradigm, the paradigm shift, but that paradigm shift should be gender equality. The better the gender equality, the better One Health interventions. And the more One Health interventions, the better progress in gender equality goals. Thank you very much, and we will continue to discuss with the next colleagues. Thank you, Natalia, for your wonderful presentation, the clarity of the two approaches as a supplement. Next, we will have Lorena Rodriguez. She's a faculty member with the Global Health Program. She's a director of the School of Public Health, Universidad de Chile. Welcome, Lorena. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Lorena will discuss how going from theory to action. And I believe you have some recommendations or measures to improve gender equality. So, Lorena, you have the floor. It's a pleasure, everyone, joining this webinar. Thank you, Catalina and the FAO team, for your kind invitation and for discussing this topic, which is so important, as well as I'd like to thank Natalia's presentation. She paved the way for my presentation. Let me share my screen. You let me know. We'll go into the presentation mode. I hope you can see it fine. Okay, it's okay, Lorena. Thank you. Okay, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, not because there is a lack of proposals. It is a challenge because sometimes such proposals are challenging, and it addresses issues that one might think could go against the economy. It would stop growth. Uh, Proposals that looking for equality, make us see development in a more quiet way. Because an accelerated development could leave some groups behind. So I will be discussing some of that, and we'll have a couple of minutes, I believe, to uh, interact at the end, so we could elaborate on this type of things. Okay, we were told that these One Health view as animal well-being, human well-being, one may say well-being of those species in the water, in the seas, the lakes, but we need to look at the planet's health as a whole, meaning simple problems actually are far more challenging. Let's start from some assumptions, which I believe have already been discussed. Gender approach, it's a cornerstone for transformation of agri-food systems. In gender inequalities have an influence in the ability to prevent and detect and react to threats affecting human, animal, and environmental health. Transformative gender approaches will contribute to understand and to address inequalities because the concept of social drivers taught us that unless we look at the causes of the causes, then probably we will not be able to find effective solutions. Of course, there is a great opportunity in empowering of women, particularly rural women, those who support in most Latin American countries, but also around the world, this agri-food system, and learning and disseminating experiences and best practices, which will be the case today, will contribute not only to replicate these best practices, but also to realizing them, acknowledging them, and therefore empowering of women, and that the role of public policies is quite relevant in reducing gaps and in the promotion of gender equality. The goodwill is not enough. Best practices are not enough. Society as a whole, the government, the state, they have to be available for the system for these public policies may be effective.
We thus acknowledge that there are persistent inequalities and many countries have made progress, but today, despite the progress, we still face a major challenge, that the economic and social impact of gender inequality is a source of inequality. And that is what is important, because here we're not talking of a group of feminist women defending our rights, but rather this is also related to the development of the country as a whole and of the population as a whole, and that ever-changing contexts, wars present today, climate change, social changes, political changes that our countries are faced with often interfere not only with decisions, but with the permanence of the decisions that are made in terms of actions. And that is why it is often important that these public policies be based on laws or on regulations that may go beyond social or political changes, beyond the ups and downs of social changes, and that the employment of women in agri-food systems is not only an important source of growth for the country as a whole, but also an important livelihood for those women and for their families, and that the development of boys and girls also relies heavily upon this livelihood. And yet, working conditions, especially for women, have a tremendous impact in terms of this leading to the family and social development, and that the access to active resources such as land, irrigation, and seeds for women continues to be a very important element, and not only for for their empowerment, but also to promote initiatives that enable their development. And in consequence, social and political regulations establish more or less discrimination, and underlying this is public policy. Therefore, the One Health approach of agri-food systems, but what I like is the wider-ranging concept of the food um, systems and transformation go hand in hand with gender equality, because this contributes towards promoting sustainability, collaboration, and networks, public policy, and innovating public policies that recognizes the roles and differentiated impacts, and also differentiated vulnerabilities, and that strengthens sovereignty and food security, and that in consequence has an impact upon public health, thinking about the health of populations and of the environment. This is therefore a complex problem, and a complex problem has more multiple causalities, has non-linear trajectories, multiple interrelations, intersectionality. I don't need to tell this group that women of certain races that also have low educational levels with different, well, with high levels of poverty are more severely impacted. And when there is a wide range of stakeholders and various interests involved, that and changing interests, this leads to uncertainty. And we must work with these elements when it comes to public policy. And we like that image at the bottom of that elephant with people who are wearing dark glasses. Some say that these are blind people. I don't like saying there. I like to say that they're simply not able to view the total complexity. If all these people were to take those dark glasses off and they were to look together at the whole problem, they would probably be pointing towards public policies that are involved with this approach of social determinants, of trade or commercial determinants, how commercial elements have an impact, marketing chains, supply, lobbying, how all this has an impact upon public policy decisions and also, of course, environmental determinants. And the approach of public policy is a causal approach. And how we deal with this relies on the causes, and this is related to decisions on the part of individuals or on the part of communities, and also public policy decisions. These decisions that we call structural decisions, and this leads to practices. When in a country we have a law to protect women, or, for example, a law on nurseries to look after boys and girls, or to provide support for carers when it comes to caring for the elderly that require this care, that public policy will enable those groups of women to make better decisions, to have better opportunities in their practices, and thus a contribution to improve the situation. This intersectional, transdisciplinary approach, which also involves social binding participation, makes public policy a reality, and therefore inclusive interventions. Now, this implies including the gender perspective in all strategies, which goes far beyond than adding an O or an A to the end of a phrase. At least this is valid in Spanish, in the Spanish language, not so much in English. And to guarantee the participation of women so that their voices may be heard when it comes in decision making. And this, as from the design of public policies, and not only in the evaluation of results. And this often involves something that not many like, and which is, and I refer to positive discrimination. We require positive discrimination for women to be able to participate, and so that their participation spaces be protected, to guarantee benefits that enable the resilience of communities, to agree upon positions. Eventually, I would like for us to establish a major or enter into a major country, regional, or even international agreement, putting women at the center so that we can bring to the fore a real commitment when it comes to these inequalities and their solution. Lorena, you have 3 minutes left. Okay. Transformative gender approaches that deal with present social regulations that are discriminatory and that are aimed at bridging these gaps in terms of the ownership of land and the improvement of access to care services, and also strengthening social protection policies, which involves indirect social policies enabling women to develop. Now, we could provide a whole number of examples, and I've only mentioned some that are based on causal evidence and cost-effective interventions, leaving aside what does not work, because often we tend to insist upon the same thing, to acknowledge this intersectionality, how different factors come together in one single group, the need for a care system for children, for the elderly, that are often cared for by these women, social protection, for example, via subsidies, via the prevention of gender violence, the registration of this data disaggregated by gender, which enables us to have a better diagnosis, policies that truly point towards bridging these gaps, and therefore focusing interventions on the empowerment of women in terms of education, for example, regulatory frameworks that enable us to ensure and to guarantee access to these resources, to different funds, different promotion initiatives to prevent migration from rural areas to cities and to promote the empowerment of women, increasing their educational level. And finally, I would like to end with you a phrase that would be useful for another webinar, and that I'm not going to discuss this in depth, but we need to consider the different masculinities and the different ways of being a man that exist today in our societies, and that we must reflect on, and we must relate that with the empowerment of women. Thank you very much, and I hope that I have been on time. Of course, later on we will have a possibility to discuss some issues in greater depth during the Q&A session. Thank you, Lorena. In fact, I highly value how you show us via a set of examples and reflections that the work of these two approaches, One Health and gender approaches in public policies, is not only necessary but also feasible. Thank you, Lorena. We will now move ahead with the presentation that will be delivered by Catherine Fernandez Rojas, who is a member staff associated to gender equality within the UN DP, UN Development Program. And she will be talking to us about an experience in the development of a diagnosis with a gender approach in Costa Rican cattle raising, highlighting the inequalities faced by women in this sector. Please go ahead, Catherine. We are very eager to listen to you.
Muchísimas gracias. Ya voy a proyectar.
Thank you. Let me share my screen and
agradecerles, bueno, el espacio. Muy buenos
once again,
días.
thank you for the invitation. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Catherine Fernandez Rojas, like Catalina just said. I'm an associate at the gender equality at UNDP, and we will be discussing the role of public policies in reducing the gender gap as part of the SCALA, which is the support program to support the land use, agricultural use, to drive climate actions, which is affecting us because of greenhouse effect gases and climate effect. As part of the SCALA program, since we have a commitment between FAO and UNDP to solve on the gaps in gender gaps in livestock in Costa Rica, because when producing information at a national level, we don't know how many women or how many men are involved in livestock, but that we don't have gender equality approaches to implement actions on this topic, and that's why we have we have this in the Scala program, and we will need to investigate what is happening with livestock farmers in Costa Rica. That's the origin of this study. We used a method using focal groups, unstructured interviews, and an online form. The study was conducted thanks to the alliance with the Corfoga, the livestock association. They've been looking into women, and through this cooperation to identify women, they had WhatsApp groups for women. So through these, we managed to engage with them. The goal of the study is to analyze the situation of women in order to identify the gender gaps that prevented the full engagement in livestock activities. And as I said before, and I'm sorry, Catherine. For some reason, you're not sharing your presentation. In fact, I see it as, but not full screen. Could you click on full screen? Now we're in business. Okay, thank you.
Gracias. Entonces, como les comentaba, los
So, like I
beneficios a
said,
los niños, hallazgos y
these are
actividades
some of the
estos
findings
videos
and
que
a
los
couple of
invito que
short
tengan
video clips
puedan escuchar la información
so
de
that you can
mujeres
listen to
expertas
the
en el
information
proceso. Para
from
iniciar,
women.
comentarles que en los procesos
First,
participativos se realizaba una consulta a las
we had a
mujeres
consultation
sobre
with
la
women
motivación, ya que
in
al
terms
principio
of
para trabajar en
motivation to
animales,
work in livestock.
muchas decían que era una motivación familiar,
Many
ya
said
desde hace años, de
it was a family
generaciones,
tradition.
era una pasión,
They
una
said it
motivación
was a
para
passion, a
trabajar en la comunidad,
motivation, that
pero
they
no valoraban
loved
la
working on this, but
necesidad
they
de
also said the
estos
need
niños o
to
estas mujeres
supply
con
milk
recursos, pues
for
debido a la
children.
pandemia que se quedaran sin trabajo,
Or
tuvieron
because of the pandemic, they
una
lost their
mejor manera
jobs.
de
So these productive activity
subsistir
was a
social
way
y
to
económicamente
gain
hablando.
some economic
De manera
independence
muy
at the time.
general, esta era la caracterización de las mujeres que
This is
participaban
a
en el proceso.
characterization of women
Las
involved. We
mujeres
reached
realizaban
123 women out of
principalmente
the six regions in
tareas
the
ligadas a
country.
pequeños emprendidos de
However, we
mujeres
know there are
para
many more
para eso
women who were
podemos
not
ver el rango de
part of
edad
the
que
process.
varian
This
desde
is
los
the
40 a
age
60 años,
range between
de
41 and 60
personas
years of
adultas
age.
que han comenzado
Education,
secundaria o tienen un
most of
grado
them have
superior
complete
a la secundaria.
secondary education
Muchas
or
que
less,
participan en el
and
proceso. A veces
they
creemos que
many of them we
trabajamos
believe
aislados
that
y
this is an isolated
desautorizados,
job
pero
for a
les
couple of
podemos decir
hours
que
a day. But
definitivamente
the
es un
study
trabajo
shows that this
completo
is a full-time
para la
job.
actividad y queríamos
They
traerles como
spend the whole day.
ese
So we
apoyo a todas las mujeres que
this
profesionales asociadas que realizamos
we
que
would tend
trabajamos
to
en el proceso.
believe that this is just
En
help,
términos
a
de
secondary job.
actividades,
In terms of ownership of the farm of our land,
ya era propia y
we
era
asked if the land was
era propia,
owned, the farm was owned, and they said
poquito más
most of them, they said they
y
did,
ellas
but
eran las dueñas de la
whether they
tierra,
were the
el
owners of the land,
42% de las mujeres dijo
42% of
que
women say
la propiedad
that
o sea, la mitad de las mujeres
not that less than half own the
en
land,
relación a que, bueno,
and that they
la herencia o la heredera
because
o el papá, pero no necesariamente
it was owned by their parents or husbands, but they're not the owners of the land
con la edad,
themselves.
en general,
Likewise,
65% de las mujeres propietarias de la tierra
65% of women
realizan
who
las tareas
own the
agrícolas.
farms, they own less than
Esto
20 hectares
significaría
to work.
que
That
aumente el
is,
tamaño de una finca,
the greater the size of the farm,
aumente también la proporción de la cantidad de mujeres que son propietarias
there's
y
less,
bueno,
not the lower the number of owner, female owners.
10 a 20 hectáreas. Y esta misma
And this is
información sucede cuando hacemos referencia a los
again,
animales. La mayoría
it's
de las
true
mujeres
for the
trabajan
animals.
en
Most
campos de
women
ganado y
work with
actividades
less
agrícolas.
than
Entonces ahí
15
llamamos mucho también la relación
animals or head of
de la zona de
livestock
cuidado
in the
del
productive
cielo
activity.
en todo este análisis.
So, in the
Como
whole
les dije,
analysis, we can see that
se
the
detectaba que las
study
mujeres son dueñas de su
emphasizes that the
propietaría,
women that
pues
own
presentan
their land,
mayor posibilidad
they
de
have greater
decisión sobre la
possibilities of making decisions as part of the livestock activity.
En relación ya con la afiliación, por ejemplo, a
Uh,
diferentes cámaras
Now, being the
ganaderas
membership to
en el
different
país,
associations, livestock
la
associations in the
participación
country,
de ellas, ¿verdad?
they
En
do
torno al
participate,
75%
but
de que indicamos, ¿no? Esta
35%
ganadería
claim that they
maneja
are
los
not
cultivos
members,
pero la gran
because
mayoría pues está más afuera, no son dueñas propietarias de esta ganadería.
they do not
Como les
own
comentaba, la cantidad,
the animals.
también, bueno, por tema de dinero y demás,
Money.
veíamos
So,
los trámites o los requisitos que se requieren para
all the
pertenecer
procedures which
a
are
una sociedad
required
de
to
ganadería
belong
o
these type of associations,
de
which
alta
are not
tecnología
adapted
en el
to the
país.
reality of women in
De
the
igual
country.
manera, algo interesante en
Likewise,
términos de participación, de toma de decisión
in decision making. Most women are not part of the boards of the associations. These are very important levels to address the realities of women, but they're not attending, they're not being part of it. And if we ask whether they were interested in participating, well, not all of them are in a position to participate. But this is also a possibility to contribute to these important topics. Whether they are part of the Nama Ganadería program. Only 24% are owners are part of the Nama Ganadería program. This is a pathway towards a more eco-competitive to promote into technology and integration. Women are being taken into consideration in these programs from the government. So there was some sort of a requirements issue which are not adapted to the realities and needs of livestock farmer women. We ask, what's a livestock farmer? Catherine, if I might, you have 3 minutes left. Well, we never question what's a livestock farmer, but women work twice as much, and that affects full engagement and participation of women, not only out in the field, but also at decision-making level. 76% of women say that they have not been part of actions, programs, or initiatives adapted to the realities near, and these means that not all of them have access to all these opportunities. And before the video clips, women show high commitment in implementing sustainable practices in the livestock, as I mentioned before. They are an important stakeholder. They're very much aware. They're quite resilient to climate change. In one of the focal groups, one of them said that she would be learning on sustainable practices, but now back home, she has to convince her husband for the implementation. So there again, it's a problem. It's a barrier to implement sustainable practices. And like the colleague said before, we have to work with them, but also with the community and the families, so as to drive the changes which are required. So let's play the video clip number 1, so that you can listen to the women themselves.
Cuando tenemos que ir, por ejemplo, a una subasta, entonces ahí hay veces somos señaladas o qué sé yo, tal vez yo veo que hay veces se ríen de uno.
Mujeres Ganaderas de Costa Rica muestra la realidad que enfrentan estas productoras para orientar el impulso de la colaboración FAO-PNUD. Conozcamos la historia de Yesenia en Zambito y Carla en Nandayure.
Y mi papá era uno que a nosotros nos valoraba el trabajo a la mitad de un hombre. Entonces, esa parte a mí me incomodaba.
Los hombres obviamente son más que se han dedicado a esta forma de trabajo. Sin embargo, uno como mujer asume todas esas responsabilidades para desarrollar las destrezas, digamos, de lo que es la ganadería.
Acorde al estudio, así como Yesenia y Carla, muchas otras mujeres enfrentan obstáculos. Por ejemplo, se cuestiona su capacidad. Dependen de las decisiones de sus parejas. No reciben salario. Las marcas para ganado y los títulos de propiedad de sus fincas no están a sus nombres, así como poco o nulo acceso a financiamiento, por mencionar solo algunos de ellos.
En el 2020, para la pandemia, me quedé sin trabajo. Me compré 2 novillas
Entonces yo lo que me dedico es a la ganadería de cría.
Parte importante de la implementación ha sido su perspectiva de género, ya que integra de forma efectiva y directa a grupos de mujeres.
Muchas veces las mujeres se han dedicado a las tareas del hogar. Y no solo las tareas del hogar, hay que disfrutar un poco, hay que ir al campo, hay que ir a aprender.
Como mujer no tengo obstáculos ninguno, más que limitaciones en el sentido económico, ¿verdad? Porque uno desearía poder tener un montón de cosas para que se facilite más el proceso de cuidado de nuestras vacas.
Y si nosotras las mujeres les podemos ayudar a los varones en el campo, más bien siéntanse bendecidos que queremos ayudarles.
Y para complementar, hay un segundo video igual cortito.
And there's a second short video clip, if you could watch, because that's another couple of stories of female cattle farmers.
Todo lo que queramos hacer.
Mujeres Ganaderas de Costa Rica muestra la realidad que enfrentan estas emprendedoras y el impulso brindado mediante la cooperación de FAO y PNUD. Conozcamos la historia de Lorena en Sarapiquí y Ángela en Chomes.
A ser mujer, digamos, a trabajar con hombres, el hombre quiere imponer porque somos mujeres. Entonces usted tiene que tomar como mano dura y decir, no, esto se hace así porque así lo quiero yo, ¿verdad?
Yo sobrevivo de la pensión de él nada más, de mi viejo. En vez en cuando vendo un ternerillo, es la única entrada que me queda a mí. De ahí ya no tengo entrada de ninguna manera.
Como Lorena y Ángela, la mayoría de mujeres ganaderas asumen diferentes roles y responsabilidades. Trabajo doméstico no remunerado, crianza y acompañamiento académico de sus hijos e hijas, búsqueda de ingresos complementarios, cuidado de familiares y personas allegadas, además de participar activamente en sus comunidades, lo que evidencia la doble y hasta triple jornada de trabajo de las mujeres dedicadas a la ganadería. Desde el proyecto Escala, se trabaja en la construcción de una hoja de ruta que permita impulsar mejores condiciones para las mujeres ganaderas en aras de disminuir las brechas.
El mayor desafío es que él me ayudaba mucho, mi viejo, en reparar cercos y andar conmigo. Él comenzó como con demencia y después le dio un derrame. Solo dedicarse a él como que es muy cansado. En cambio, venir aquí a ver ganado, darle agua, comida, es como un desestrés para mí.
Quiero ver la finca, pero totalmente lista. Yo quiero sacar cada 6 meses un lote de novillos, por lo menos de 13 animales. Nos enfrentamos a muchas cosas y los varones y la gente en conjunto nos respetan como mujer si nos damos el respeto y no hay que temer a nada.
Muchísimas gracias. Para finalizar, entonces.
Thank you very much. So in closing, bearing this context in mind, how public policies are critical to build these realities and to guarantee equal opportunities in production, but also to value the contribution of rural women to sustainability, preservation of biodiversity, ecosystems, food security, and clearly the community security. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine, for highlighting the role of women and this diagnosis with a gender approach and One Health in cattle raising activities. Thank you for that. Before we move on to the next presentation, I would like to remind you that we want to receive your comments and observations, and for that purpose, you can post that in the chat of this Zoom session. Your comments and questions will be welcome there. And also that at the end of this event, you will be able to download your participation certificates. Now I'd like to offer the floor to Marina Borbon Barrantes, who is the coordinator of the Women Livestock Program of the Chamber of Independent Cattle Ranchers of the Southern Zone of Costa Rica. Marina will share the experience of the program Women Cattle Raisers, showing how rural women face challenges and also create solutions in both health and production. Please go ahead, Marina. Good morning, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be able to share these comments, this vision of rural women, their experiences and good practices. Next slide, please. The importance of rural women in Costa Rica. Well, more than 40% of the rural population in Costa Rica are women. And we face challenges such as access to credits. We have little or very few or very small pieces of land and technical training and the participation of public policies in specifically. They become an example for effort and leadership with great resilience by being able to show through their work that they are essential in order to guarantee the progress of this sector and to safeguard or to guarantee food security. Next one, please. What does the Mujer Ganadera program consist of? Well, this began as an initiative promoted by two women who identified the need to bring together these women in the association of livestock producers, and via these associations they were able to obtain resources. Please, Marina, I would like to ask Catalina to show your presentation in full screen mode. Now that's better. Thank you. Now, what does the program consist of? Well, it's an initiative of two women who wanted to put these great women in context so that we could become beneficiaries. And it was the Chamber of Independent Livestock Producers that took on board this project so that the Chamber, as an association, would support us and seeking strategies for empowered women of our association. We are an example at a national level because this is the only chamber in Costa Rica that is developing this project, and therefore we're very proud to have been invited to determine what we do and how we work. And thus, this project began in 2018 with 23 women, and at present, we have 74 members associated to the chamber, and each member has at least 4 animals. So there are many women in this association, but out of 400 associates in this chamber, we still want to be more women, and we need to be much better. We need to be represented there, and this project has indeed been an example that deserves to be followed. Can you see the slide okay? Yes, we can see it okay. Please go ahead. Well, the main objective of the association of the Chamber of livestock producers, together with the Women Livestock Producer Program, is to develop empowerment links that so that they be self-sufficient in economic terms, and so that they achieve work that leads to revenues without having to move outside their households. Because in addition to being livestock producers, we are heads of household, mothers, wives, and carers, and we work during many hours of the day, but we're very happy to work out in the field, which is what we are passionate about, even if that means often sacrificing time in other aspects of our lives. But we gradually become more empowered. Experiences and good practices. Well, here, via the association, the Chamber of Livestock Producers, so we have received training, workshops, field days, technical assistance, and all of this has been of tremendous benefit for us. We have implemented good livestock and agricultural practices in harmony with the environment, and that have been acquired in coordination with government and institutions and NGOs, with the UN program, with ILAMO, which is the INAMO, which is the National Women's Institute, with Corfoga. We have collaborated a lot with MAG, which is the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, Concertación, the National Institute for Development in DERC, the universities in Costa Rica, the National University. They have all collaborated, and likewise the National Institute for Agricultural Technology, INTA. Now, what is our experience? Well, what is very positive is to listen and to evidence how these women are trained and empowered with projects such as leadership talks, workshops on how to prepare organic fertilizers, how to build an electrical fence, how to conduct rational grazing practices. At present, livestock doesn't go out, and we are now aware of, for example, of clean energy. We have received from the UN program. We have received projects from them. And Adiete, which enables us to harvest water, which are techniques that we can have at a household level in order to collect rainwater.
Marina, me disculpa, 3 minutos.
Marina, you have 3 minutes left. Well, and therefore we have these different experiences, so which have enabled us to empower women. Challenges. Well, we have challenges at a personal level. I'm a person that was born and lives in rural areas, and it's not the same when you're a woman that comes from rural areas or from city areas. We, however, had to deal with major challenges. We, for example, had to study and travel 14 hours a day to attend university. And this also, we faced economic problems, discrimination, chauvinism, and so on. However, I was strong enough to attend an agricultural school and to hold administrative positions, and therefore become fully empowered. As a result of that, in the group of livestock producer women, without gender inequalities, we had to deal with gender inequality, with discrimination, with land ownership, scarce access to credit, and we have had to definitely fight against that male discrimination. Well, conclusions. In terms of conclusions, we see that the creation of this program has enabled us to break down that patriarchy and to bring to the fore women in a sector that has been historically dominated by men. We are examples for our children, and they in turn are the pillars of the future. We are an inspiration, something that shines light upon the road ahead. And despite the challenges, we never lose hope so that we can continue to transform both lives and communities. So what we need is more support from your local projects, more space for public policies so that you may be aware and knowledgeable of our contribution. I have a phrase here which says that this is an inspiration because by empowering a woman, you plant a future, you plant hope, and you harvest a better tomorrow. Now we will have a look at a very significant video for us, which involves the provision of cows to a cattle raising group and to an indigenous group.
Constanza, mis disculpas. Marina, no sé si hemos recibido adecuadamente
I don't know if we have received the video that you mentioned. Did you send it to us? Have we received it, Constanza?
Perdone, Marina, entiendo que no hemos recibido el video.
No, Marina, we have not received the video that you mentioned. Our apologies for that. I don't know what happened there.
Catherine, lo tienes un video muy significativo para nosotros, las mujeres.
¿Lo tiene Catherine? Ah, yo entendía que
Does Catherine have it?
Catherine, efectivamente cuenta
Catherine,
con ese video.
do you indeed have that video? Yes. So I can show it now if you want.
Sí, adelante.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hay un tema, no se está pasando el sonido del video.
We can't hear the sound of the video. We can't hear anything.
Catherine.
Catherine?
Catherine.
Catherine?
Es que ahora no vemos la imagen. Mi propuesta es que
Now we can't hear it. Regrettably, given that we had not considered this initially, our idea is to check this and subsequently distribute this via the FAO networks. I would like to thank Marina for her stories, which are very, very valuable because they connect us to the realities of rural women. We're very happy to listen to you, and congratulations for the progress that you have made. Now, we would like to open up the floor to a Q&A session so that we can answer your questions and comments. And the following question is asked for Lorena. Lorena, please, what is it that we can do to convince those responsible for the design and implementation of public policies to integrate so that they may integrate the One Health and gender approaches in their work? How is it that we can convince them to do that? What would you recommend, Lorena? Thank you for the question. A very, very good question. What I can share with you is the experience that I had that Catalina was also a part of when I was in charge of managing public policies in the Ministry of Health in Chile. And I believe that a very important element is to have good arguments. Sometimes we feel that when we are pursuing the concept of health or gender equality, that is enough in order to convince um, um, policy designers, but sometimes in order to convince legislators or high officials, we do need to have very good arguments which exist, and we certainly have to uh, be fully on board with those arguments, and they must be differentiated arguments depending on who we speak to. If I have to speak with a Minister of Health, for example, the set of arguments that I will present him or her are different to the ones that I would present if I was to talk to a minister of the economy. So out of this long list of arguments, I would have to prioritize those when I have a short amount of time in order to present those arguments. And today we have sufficient arguments for all these aspects that we have heard of. It's a question of listening to Marina, Natalia, or all our colleagues that have presented today to understand that the arguments do exist. And this is not just a question of passion. This involves scientific evidence that supports the One Health approach. And therefore, in my experience, what has been most useful is indeed what I have just explained. And the other thing that I believe is very important is the social commitment, the commitment on the part of the population in order to support public policies. Because when one has the population against you, despite scientific evidence, that is very difficult, and therefore it's important to promote citizens' participation and to have citizen support, plus scientific evidence. So I believe that those two tips, in accordance with my experience, have been very useful, but certainly there are probably more that we could continue to discuss.
Thank you, Lorena, for your clear answer. I have a question for Natalia by Mónica Leonor Mosquera Garcés. She says, good morning from the Colombian Pacific region. It's an important webinar. I'm in the fishing industry. I'm women. We face several gender gaps. What would you recommend to address that in our sector? What could we do to address gender gaps in fishing? Thank you, Monica, for your question. I'm familiar with your region, and I'm pleased that you are attending these webinar to disseminate this good news. One of the things we've seen, which is very successful, is associations. In the Caquetá case, which is a different value chain, but the importance of participation of women in decision making. But many times this is not easy if you're on your own. It's important to find the value of grouping women and to become interested in common things, and then scale that up, like Lorena said, in those public policies. But many times, since we're not ready to do that, it's important to have training, and let's finding alliances, which is such as in One Health, academia, NGOs, schools. In Villa de Leyva in Coyacán, we have a project with women working in agro-tourism. That we meet every 15 days. So to have this social cohesion, so as to have this training together with the academia, having the cities involved. I don't know if that's even possible. To these conversations now, in October the 24th, we'll be holding a meeting integrating a dialogue with or offering the opportunity for women. I don't know if that maybe we could share that information with you, and maybe we can share best practices. You can always send me an email, and I can share with you Diana's experience in the Caquetas value chain. We have to change the personal paradigms. We need to use our voice, the self-esteem to say, I will attend even if I'm not that familiar with everything, but I can be trained. There are many allies working behind this. The value chain of aquaculture and fishing is very strong here. I've met several people. We can liaise so that you can run these diagnostic experiences to figure out what are the gaps in your area, and working with specific time frames and indicators. I know it is possible, and there is a clear intention from the governance of these value chain to improve equality. So I'm glad that you're here, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you, Natalia, for addressing that question. We have a question now for Marina. Marina, uh, they says that they acknowledge that caregiving it's an overload for rural women. From your experience, what could we do to move towards co-responsibility of cares, especially with your experience in the livestock farming? Thank you.
Responder estos cuidados
These
corresponde, somos mujeres,
we are
muy fuerte,
women,
la labor muy fuerte
and we are responsible for the field. We are responsible for the household chores.
del señor que está enfermo, del hijo que
We are responsible for our husband who is ill, children to be taken to school,
esto cansa,
and that's exhausting. That's
y necesitamos, yo lo que creo es
and we need, I believe, more being more empowered, um,
carácter, más de
more
toma de
character,
decisiones
more
y
decision
poner
making,
a la familia,
and
en este caso, a
in
que
this
asumamos
case,
nuestros propios roles.
family has to play a role.
Nos da miedo.
We are submissive. We are fearsome. We feel that we cannot do many things, but actually, we do things at the farm, at home. We take kids to school. We go to meetings. We represent. So we need more empowerment. We have to be more authentic. We need to be uh, more powerful and to make our voice heard. And as to, I mean, many times we don't have leadership positions.
Alcemos la voz.
We need to speak louder. Women, we can do things, and we have to believe that we can do things. Thank you, Marina. I have a comment from Monica as to Natalia's answer. She would like to be in touch with you, Natalia, and she's asking for your coordinates. If you could, maybe we could, if Monica can give us their email in the chat pod so that we can share that with Natalia so you can keep in touch. I also have a question for Catherine. This is diagnosis is expensive. So what's the difference? What's different in this type of in livestock? Okay. Okay, because we're working with the gender perspective, as we said before. If we want to have gender equality, we need evidence, we need supporting data. This was a participatory process where we have information we didn't have before. I mean, given the women's situation in the sector, it is important not only with the evidence that's which is uh, critical. Now, because now we have data to support our decisions, but we need to work now with institutions working directly with the livestock or any institution for training for them to understand why gender, why the importance, why the incentives for women. Many times they would say, well, we received an animal, but I don't have a pen, I don't have the right conditions in my farm. Uh, I don't, they don't make sure whether you have the general knowledge of how to work on livestock. So we have programs, projects. As we offered livestock to women, but we don't make sure whether they can actually work in livestock. And many times that's the situation. Those are the challenges. Gender is seen as an option rather than cutting across the whole activity. We should and everyone should there is a gain for everyone in trying to achieve gender equality, because the studies that show what our gaps are so that we can directly address these gaps. Gender equality, but we also know we need intersectionality. We need to identify these contributions that will address diversity of women and the diversity of livestock farmer women. We need budgets because there is a cost to be paid. Actions sometimes are planned, but we don't have the necessary budget. A budget with the gender perspective, it's not just lines of action. I mean, from the budget of an organization, gender should be streamlined uh, so that should be mainstreamed. Everything should address a gender perspective rather than just a couple of lines of actions in many of our organizations. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Of greetings from Saida Rivero. She is commending. She values the experiences shared today. Thank you, Saida, for that. We are close to the end of our webinar. I would like to say that we have seen that One Health approach to be really effective should integrate gender equality as a key principle. Rural women are at the center of sustainability of agri-food systems, and their empowerment is key to prevent, detect, and to react health care challenges we face as a society. We would like to especially thank our speakers, the whole organizing team, and of course, everyone listening, actively listening. I'd like to ask you to continue to join us in these webinars on One Health and to continue to build together agri-food systems which are more just health healthy and resilient. Thank you very much, and I will keep in touch. Have a good afternoon. Have a great afternoon.